Welcome to your third lesson in this bootcamp. In this video, we will be setting up our code environment and writing our first code. We are going to be using different text editors depending on your device. For those of us using mobile phones, you will need to download either TrepEdit or SPCK editor from your Play Store or Apple Store. TrepEdit is not available on the Apple Store, but you can get SPCK editor from there. Those of us using laptops will be downloading Visual Studio Code from the official Visual Studio Code website, and I'll be guiding you through the process. Now let's just open our browser and type code.visualstudiocode.com. Okay, so this is the website that we're going to be using to download our Visual Studio Code. So just wait for it to load, and once it's done loading, we'll see the download button. Most times the download should start automatically. So yeah, download started automatically. So this is our Visual Studio Code setup and it is downloading. Once it is done downloading, you open the setup and follow the steps of instructions that will be given to you. But since I already have Visual Studio Code downloaded, I'm going to pause this download and I'll open my Visual Studio Code and continue with our lesson. Let us set up our code environment in Visual Studio Code. There are some write-ups here that you may want to go through. You can do that in your free time. So this is our Visual Studio Code, and usually when you open the Visual Studio Code, it's going to show you this welcome page. And from this welcome page, you can do several things. You can create a new file, you can open a file, you can open a folder, you can clone Git repository. Yes, you can connect your Visual Studio Code to your GitHub. GitHub is a version control system that we're going to be using later in this bootcamp. But for now, we'll be focusing on just using our Visual Studio Code to create our simple front-end websites. Now we want to create a new folder. We want to open a new folder. We can come to this place or we can click here to open a folder. But let's try working with our navigation menus. Yeah. So here I come here now and I'll click open folder. So by the time I open folder, it opens to my drive directly. That is my C drive, my main drive in the laptop. Then I can create a new folder that I will use for my projects. So I can say this folder, I'm going to call it, let's say I want to call it an example folder. But you can give your folder any name that you want to use. Just be sure to remember the folder and let the folder relate to whatever you're going to be using it for in the code environment. I'm going to be using it to show you an example of how you can use Visual Studio Code, so I name the folder example. Now I select the folder and I open it. Now this is my code environment. This is my folder, but there are no files inside. There is no HTML file, there is no CSS file, there is no JavaScript file. You will be the one to create those yourself, and I'll be showing you how you can create those files in your Visual Studio Code. Most of these files are created by simply adding the extension of the file that you want. For example, to create an HTML file, you add the .html extension. While if you want to create a CSS file, you add the .css extension. We want to create an HTML file. Let's say index.html. You see, it immediately brought out this HTML icon showing that yes, it is an HTML file. We didn't even complete it. Yeah, there is something like HTML and there's HTML, but we're not using HTML. We're not using HTML, rather we want to use HTML. So you can rename. Okay, so we're learning something new again. Let's say, for example, you made a mistake and you wanted to write HTML. You wrote HTM. You can simply right click and rename that particular document. Now I want to rename. I can come here and add L, and you see it's still my HTML document. Did we notice any difference when we add just HTML? Don't add just HTML. Okay. I thought there was no number there before. But anyways, let's move on. So now we have HTML, and this is how to create an HTML file in this particular folder. Then, when you're using HTML documents, you always have to generate a specific line of codes that are called boilerplates. And to generate those codes, you use your shift key plus one. Shift key plus one. When you press shift and then you press one in your keyboard, it's going to give you the exclamation mark. So shift key plus exclamation mark is what you get used, and then you have your HTML boilerplates. Now this boilerplate, you are always going to be generating it whenever you want to create an HTML document. You cannot just open your HTML document and start typing hello world and start typing anything. You need to generate this HTML boilerplate. In our upcoming videos, you will be understanding how this HTML boilerplate works and what you need to know about it. But for now, we've been able to successfully create an HTML document. Okay, let's try creating a CSS document in this particular folder. So we can come here and say style.css. So you see, yes, so now we have two files under our example folder. That is awesome. Now, can we create a folder inside a folder? Yes, you can do that. Now, this first icon that we saw here is used to create a file inside a folder. The next icon is to create a folder inside a folder. So now we'll be able to create a new folder. Let's say this folder is going to be images. Maybe you don't want your images to be in the same line with your codes. You want them to be separate. You want to have a folder for just images so that your code will not be too scattered. You can create a folder for images, and then inside that folder you can add images. How do you add images to your Visual Studio Code? Very easy. You can come to your file and go to pictures. From the pictures, you select any picture from here. Then you can drag and drop it. Drag and drop. Make sure you are dropping it in the image folder. If you drop it here like this, it's going to be dropped in the example folder, but I want to drop it in the image folder, so I put it here, and then you see it drops under the image folder. So if I close the image folder, you will not see it, but when I open it, you see it blog.jpg. So that's how you add an image in Visual Studio Code. That's how you add the image in Visual Studio Code under that folder. Is there a different way that we can use to add images? Research about it and drop it in the comment section if you find one. So the next thing that I want to explain to you guys is the search button and what it is used for. Now, the search button can be used for you to find and replace words. Let's take, for example, you have a particular word in your HTML file that it's recurring and you want to change everything to something else without you having to do it one by one. You can simply come to this search button and change everything together. Okay, let's write a little code in our HTML documents so that we will change everything there. So let me say I have I have eight divs that have a class of good. Now these eight divs having a class of good, I want to change all the class to something else. Let me say I want to change all the class to bad. What will I do? I can come to my search button and I will say search for good. Now I have 8 good in my document. Now I want to replace those 8 good to bad. I will now say bad. So 8 good will be changed to bad without me having to do them one by one, that is manually. So after you type bad here, you come here and then you replace. So you see I've replaced the first one to bad, I've replaced another one to bad, so I'll just be replacing them one by one to bad from here. Then if we don't want to replace them one by one, we just want to replace everything once. Let's say we want to replace the now let's search for bad, then try to replace bad with good. I want to replace all the bad to good at once. I can just come here and replace all. I'll just replace all and you see everything will change to good. So that is one thing that we can use our search button for. You can use it to change a particular set of words to a different word in your HTML file or any of the um programming languages that you are using in your Visual Studio Code. You can use the search buttons to change those words. You can use the search buttons to find those words in case your code is very big and you don't want to be looking for them manually. Another part here is the source control. This is the place when we initialize our repository, our GitHub repository. When we start using GitHub in our Visual Studio Code, that is when we'll be using this area. But for now, we're not going to be using it. The next is run and debug. It helps to customize, run and debug, create a launch.json file. We will not be touching this for now, but one thing that we should look at again is the extension. Now, from this extension area, you can download extensions that will help you code better. Now, extensions like Prettier can make your code to appear beautiful like this. You know, sometimes when you are coding and then the codes they begin to scatter. Let's say this HTML, this div tag is not scattered here, this div tag is not here, or another div tag is not like this, and you don't want to manually arrange them. What you can do is to use your Prettier. I already have my Prettier installed, so I can just select everything and then prettify it, and you see everything is arranged the way it should be. So the live server helps you to run your HTML documents without you having to come to your browser and refresh the browser every time you make a new change to your code. So let's take, for example, we want to say I am here. So you see the code immediately displayed in our browser without us having to come to the browser to refresh. Using live server is very important, most especially when you do not want to go through the stress of refreshing your browser every time just to see the new changes that you incorporated in your web page. But it's not the only way to view your website in your browser. There are other ways that we can view our website in our browser, and that is by you copying the path of that your particular HTML document and placing it in your browser. So how do we copy the path of our HTML document? I can come here and right click in that index.html, then I'll say copy path and I'll say copy relative path. Copying path is going to copy the location of that index.html file. But copying relative path is just going to copy index.html. Now, if you want to display your HTML file in your browser, you will have to copy path and not relative path. So we'll be copying path for this particular project. Then we'll come here and we'll place that path. Now, this is the exact HTML path that I copied, and this was the one that I was using before, hello world. Then now I've added something here, I am new here, and you see it is not being displayed here because it is not live server, it is not live, it is manual. It just have the location. It has read what was in this location before, and it does not know that there is a new change. So for my browser to know that there is a new change, I will have to refresh the browser, so now it is able to read the new change. I am here. So that is the different ways that we can display our documents in our HTML file. I believe with this lesson, you'll be able to code with your Visual Studio Code when we start coding, when we start doing projects. And I'm waiting to see you creating mad projects with Visual Studio Code, your portfolio websites, games, and other things that we're going to be using our Visual Studio Code to do. In our coming lessons, we're going to be creating simple web pages using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And for that, we'll be using our Visual Studio Code. So for all of that and more, see you in the next lesson.